Last October, I boarded the Royal Caribbean super technological Odyssey of the Seas in Civitavecchia, the port of Rome, for a 13-night cruise bound for the Holy Land. I couldn't be more excited about this voyage. After all, this would be my first time visiting many of the scheduled ports on this journey, and also my first time boarding the Odyssey of the Seas, the latest Quantum class ship that began sailing in 2021. Well, actually, she is the second ship in the Quantum Ultra class. Despite being very similar to the standard Quantum class vessels, a series of changes and updates implemented to the two most recent ships, Spectrum and Odyssey of the Seas, introduced so many innovations to the original project that it granted the distinction Ultra to the ship's class name. If you're curious to know the difference between Quantum and Quantum Ultra class ships, don't worry, I'm working on a video showing all the difference between both classes. Keep an eye on the channel. A big revelation on Odyssey of the Seas for me was my cabin on this voyage. And in this video, I will reveal all the details of why the super spacious cabin 8501 was a real find on board. And remember to watch the video until the end. I'll be sharing my experience of traveling this type of cabin in a normally not desirable area due to the noise and rocking of the front of the ship, and giving my opinion if I either recommend it or not for your next voyage. But now, without further ado, it's time to visit together the Odyssey of the Seas Spacious Ocean View Stateroom 8501. Let's go! Hello cruise mates, welcome back to Cruising the World with Horton Novak. If this is your first time here, hello, I'm Horton Novak. Great to see you here. On this channel, we talk about everything related to cruises and fantastic voyages around the world. Today, we are going to talk about cabin 8501 on board the Odyssey of the Seas, and why finding this cabin was almost like destiny. Let me explain. Normally, I would prefer cabins with balconies in more central areas of the ship. However, this cruise on board Odyssey of the Seas was one of 6 that I planned to take during my mega adventure. Well, I was traveling around Europe by air, land and sea for almost 5 months. So I decided to try to save some money by booking one of those guaranteed cabins for the sailing. Guaranteed cabins are cabins where the passenger pays a bit less for a type of cabin, but doesn't choose its location on the ship. The cruise company will allocate your cabin depending on the ship's capacity, while guaranteeing the same cabin type or an upgrade otherwise. In my case, I reserved the cheapest option, an interior cabin. This type of cabin doesn't have a window, so its position on the ship would make little difference to me anyway. So why not save a few extra dollars with a guaranteed cabin, right? Although I didn't really like the idea of not knowing until very close to boarding where my cabin would be located, I had already made my peace. I was caught by surprise when, curious, I started browsing cabin types, after receiving an email from Royal Caribbean giving an option of bidding for a cabin upgrade. During the bidding process, the passenger can select one or more cabin category types available and bid an extra amount that they are prepared to pay on top of what they already paid for a chance of being upgraded. Long story short, I decided to try my luck with the auction, bidding only minimum amounts, and was really surprised when I was notified that I received the upgrade to a large sea view stateroom without breaking the bank. Do you want to know more about how the bid system works? Leave a message in the comment section below with your questions. If enough people want to know more, I will create a video explaining all the details. I was even more excited when I noticed that I received one of the few Spacious Ocean View Staterooms on board, a cabin that for some reason is rarely available despite being in an area that's not usually very popular on cruise ships, as it is known for being a lot more prone to rocking and passenger discomfort. The ship's front area. Are you curious yet? It is time we discover together what this mysterious cabin on board the Odyssey of the Seas has to offer. Let's go! Welcome to the Spacious Ocean View Stateroom 8501 aboard the Odyssey of the Seas. Aboard the Odyssey of the Seas, Spacious Ocean View Stateroom 8501 aboard the Odyssey of the Seas. Spacious Ocean View Stateroom 8501 aboard the Odyssey of the Seas. Aboard the Odyssey of the Seas, Spacious Ocean View Stateroom 8501 aboard the Odyssey of the Seas. Right away, this must be one of the reasons this cabin is so popular. As you may have noticed, it is huge. You will have enough space to organize all your belongings here. The wardrobe is the first thing you see at the end of this long corridor. It has drawers, clothes hanger space, and some shelves that also house the cabin safe. In these small doors just above the bed, you also find 2 more compartments to store your objects during the voyage. The bed is also huge and super comfortable. It also can be divided in 2 single beds, which is very traditional for Royal Caribbean and many other cruise companies. They have 2 bedside tables on each side of the bed, where the passengers can place small personal objects. On the side, you will also find the cabin's telephone. I love that they also have these bedside lights for night reading. On the other side of the bed is the same configuration. The big difference here is that they also have an American outlet, where the passengers can recharge the phone, watches, or other accessories when they go to bed at night. Don't forget to bring a USB adapter to charge all your electronics while in bed. I will leave the link to my favorite adapter, which I always take on my travels, in the description of this video, if you are on the market for one. Back in the entrance corridor, behind the door, as in most traditional cruise cabins, we have emergency instructions, including directions to your assembly station and how to put on a life jacket. The main controls for the lights and aircon are also located here by the door. In front of the bed, we have the cabin's television. As on the company's more modern cruise ships, the passenger can reposition the device to watch TV from other areas of the room. Passengers can also connect their cell phones or computers to the TV to watch shows or movies on Netflix or other platforms. This large sofa on the side is very comfortable and hides an extra bed underneath. Just above the sofa, they offer 2 more compartments to organize your belongings. The room decor on board is elegant and modern, similar to the style used on her other Quantum class siblings. And here on the opposite side, another wardrobe. This one has no shelves, just hanging space for your clothes, or maybe to store large objects like your suitcase. Right next to it, we have this table. With the addition of the mirrors and lights, was clearly designed to be a dressing table. However, it can also double as a work table, especially because most of the PowerPoints are located here, right under the mirror. Here they have 2 USB sockets for charging cell phones and other electronics, a European plug, and 2 American plugs. Next to the dressing table is a chest with several drawers. In one of the smaller drawers, you'll find a hairdryer that may not be very powerful, but can still do the job with a bit of patience. In this door just below, they have an empty minibar. In this corner, right in front of a strategically placed armchair, you'll find one of the most remarkable features of this cabin, a massive window, offering stunning views of the ship's bow and side. Passengers can enjoy glimpses of the ocean and observe the cruise activities in their leisure time. It's worth mentioning that in the Quantum class, this particular area at the front of the ship is exclusively reserved for crew members. This is my first time traveling in a corner cabin at the front of the ship, and I can't wait to spend a few days here and tell you all the details at the end of this video. The bathroom is next to the second wardrobe, and again has the same style and configuration we have expected from more modern Royal Caribbean ships. Although the bathroom isn't that small, it looks tiny in contrast to the size of the room. Here we have several shelves for personal products, and a little bit more of space under the sink. The shower cubicle is very spacious and has plenty of room for one or even two people, and the water pressure is excellent. But the best part is that the shower is enclosed in glass or acrylic walls. I love this type of bathrooms. Speaking of space, this cabin is amazing. It is the largest cabin I have ever been on a cruise ship. Even though I was traveling alone, I loved having all this extra space to myself. The cabin is big enough to accommodate a family of 4 or 5 people, although the bathroom may be a little bit crowded. This cabin is one of the hidden gems of Royal Caribbean's Quantum and Quantum Ultra classes. They have only a few of these spacious cabins at the front of the ship, providing passengers with a comfortable travel experience without having to shell out the high cost of a suite. In fact, some of these cabins are even larger than some suite categories on board. Hello again, cruising mates! I hope you enjoyed visiting this cabin on board Odyssey of the Seas with me. At the beginning of the video, I promised to talk about the location of this cabin at the front of the ship. Several people had asked me, even before I boarded, if this cabin shakes a lot or if it is very noisy due to its location. I was also curious, since this was my first time in a cabin located at the front of the ship. I usually try to book cabins in the middle of the ship, as it is a more stable area where passengers feel less of the ship's rocking. However, I must admit that on this voyage I was very impressed with this forward cabin. Although I could feel the ship rocking slightly more in this cabin, it wasn't too bad, especially when sailing through the calm waters of Greece and Turkey. However, I do think that this cabin may experience more movement than others in more central areas during half seas, what might become a problem, especially for someone who is prone to seasickness. I don't usually experience motion sickness, but on this trip, I could feel the ship's movements more in this cabin. If you are prone to motion sickness, I suggest selecting a cabin in a different part of the ship to avoid discomfort. As for the noise, yes, this cabin can be quite noisy, especially if you don't like waking up early. As you might know, cruise ships usually arrive at the port quite early, often in the early hours of the day. If you stay in this cabin, you'll hear all the commotion on the lower deck as the crew prepares to dock the ship. You may feel the vibration and hear the loud noises of the machinery and the anchor chains in movement. Even if you used to wake up early, you may still get abruptly awakened before 6 AM due to the loud noises of the ship anchoring in port. This was my experience during the voyage. Despite this, if you don't have any issues with motion sickness or waking up early, I highly recommend this cabin. I believe that the amount of space you get in this cabin without having to pay for a much more expensive suite is already worth it. The large, almost floor-to-ceiling circular windows offer stunning views of the ocean and a glimpse of the crew-only open-air area in the front of the ship, and was one of my favorite features on this cabin. Even though I would advise check prices for other cabin types before booking, as you might find a balcony cabin, for example, for a similar price and more desirable locations. The overall time I spent in the spacious cabin was delightful, and I wouldn't hesitate to book it again for another future voyage. But what do you think? Would you travel in a cabin like this one? Or if not for you? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Happy travels! I will see you in the next video.